Hello. Welcome back to another episode on Reddit Stories. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe and leave a like. Let's get into the story now.
Pregnant and my husband cheated with our Sil. I can't even believe I'm writing this. If you'd have asked me if I thought this would ever be me, I'd bet my life on it that I'd never be going through this. My husband and I have been together 10 years. Married for 3. I had 100% trust in him and I was more than confident he'd never be one of those guys who'd cheat. My Sil. If you want to call her that, her and Bill are engaged and have been on and off for the 6 years they've been together. And my husband began being close after he started working with her delivering. My mother-in-law also worked there. They'd all often go out bowling. Or out to eat after work with other co-workers. I also had a close relationship with her. I loved her like a sister. Some other family and friends could never stand her. But I really try to see the good in everyone and try to not have problems with anyone. The closeness of my husband and Sil relationship started bothering me in August. I was assured it was nothing inappropriate. I'm not proud of this. But I turned his location on his Snapchat at this point. I just had that gut feeling. I started monitoring it. But he'd always be exactly where he was supposed to be. So I dropped it. In early September, my husband got a new job and I felt much better. Late September, Sil and Bill broke up yet again. But my husband kept hanging out with her with my mill and other co-workers from his old job. It bothered me. But I tried not to be the psycho crazy controlling wife. Also in early September, we found out we were pregnant with our second child. We already have a 5-year-old together. He never wanted a second, but it happened. I was terrified to tell him. I started crying, saying he was going to hate me and want to leave. To my surprise, he hugged me and acted happy. Last week of October, he turned off his Snapchat location and I started panicking. I should have brought it up. But I didn't. If I did, none of this might have happened. But I know I can't blame myself. November 2nd. I got a text from him saying he was going bowling after work with the old co-workers and that he felt we needed a break because he wasn't happy. I was taken completely by surprise. I didn't know where this was coming from. When he got home, we talked for 5 hours and he admitted shortly after finding out I was pregnant he began panicking. He really did not want a second child. He also said he feels like his friends don't like him. That he's tired of this pandemic. He feels inadequate at work and feels like he isn't knowledgeable enough. That he fears he'll never be successful enough. Etc. He said he has been feeling depressed and suicidal for the past couple months and that he had been confiding in Sil about everything. I asked if anything was going on and he said no. I said, I swear to God. If anything happens with her you will regret it and hate yourself. It might feel good and exciting and new in the moment, but you will regret it for the rest of your life. Not to mention your whole family would hate you too. He said he knows. By the end of the night he told me he felt much better. That he remembered why he fell in love with me. And that he had no idea why he waited so long to talk to me about his feelings. The next month was great. He didn't ever go out with 2 ex-co-workers anymore. He was being more gentle with my feelings. Things were good. Out of nowhere Tuesday morning I get a call from him shortly after he gets to work. I need to tell you something. I cheated. I'm coming home now. I hung up. He kept calling back. I started having a panic attack. I asked with who. He said, I think you know. I've asked every detail I could think of. It wasn't an emotional thing. He didn't have feelings. He doesn't know why he did it. He was in a dark place. She started flirting through Snapchat the last couple days of October. He reciprocated. Things got sexual. She started sending him nudes. He went to a Halloween party. I worked overnight. Our son stayed with my parents. She called him and said to leave the party and come over. That she was home alone. He drove there and they had sex. He wore a condom. There was no foreplay. Lights were completely off. He tried to leave before anything started multiple times but she kept saying no. Stay. He said he hated himself before, during, and after. So I don't understand why he went through. When he told me he wanted a break on November 2nd, 2 days after it happened, was because of the guilt. But he still was too scared to come clean. They both stopped talking after that. All this week I've been getting 4 hours of sleep every night. I've lost 8 pounds. I randomly have panic attacks throughout the day. Of course my husband is saying all the right things. That he doesn't know why it took so long to realize what he has. That he wants to be a good dad and husband. He's excited for our baby. That he took what he had for granted for so long. He hates himself. He'll never forgive himself. That I did absolutely nothing wrong and I've never been short of amazing. That he hates her. He feels like she took advantage of him when she knew he was weak and vulnerable. That he knows he doesn't deserve me. That he had the perfect wife in life and threw it away for nothing. I was betrayed by who I truly believed deep down in my core was my soulmate / love of my life. I was betrayed by Sil, who I thought was one of my closest friends. I also now feel betrayed by Mill because she is still best friends with Sil. She went out to get nails done with her the day after me and her found out everything. Never even asked me how I was. It's embarrassing, but I can't stop having sex with him. I always imagined if this would happen to me, I'd be burning his clothes and hammering his PS4. I used to think the women who stayed were crazy. I want to stay, but I don't think I can. I keep playing the movies in my head and I don't think they'll ever leave. I don't believe it would ever happen again. But I also believed it could never ever happen the first time either. I feel embarrassed. Stupid. Gullible. Sorry this was so long. I didn't know how to condense it anymore. Story 2. Husband cheated with sister-in-law. I just found out last week that my husband and sister-in-law have been having an affair. I've suspected it for many years but have never had any concrete proof. At little backstory. My husband and I have been together for 11 years and my brother and his wife have been together for almost the same amount of time as well. My husband admitted that he and my sister-in-law would have conversations over the years without anyone knowing. We all used to live together several years ago. I've watched them over the years flirting, being playful, and just very overly friendly. I thought I was being jealous and ultimately I told myself I should just trust him. Everyone in my family can see that my sister-in-law had a thing for my husband because of the way she would act towards him. She confided in him about her marriage to my brother a lot, telling him how they're on the brink of divorce or how mentally abusive he is, etc. Fast forward to August of 2018. I was pregnant with our second child and he ended up passing away while I was 23 weeks pregnant. It was devastating. I was heartbroken. Then, I started working back in February of 2019 and I asked my sister-in-law to watch our son. I later learned that that's when things turned physical in their relationship. He tells me it went on from February of 2019. September of 2019 we put our son in daycare. September of 2019, which is why I think their interactions weren't as frequent after this point. Also, to be clear, I've asked him outright more times than I can count if there was anything going on between the two of them and he said no. He denied it for many years and he told me I was crazy, but my intuition kept nagging at me. Now fast forward to a couple weeks ago. I kept thinking about it and I decided to check our phone bill. I saw that they texted on a Saturday morning at 5:00 a.m. back in the middle of September and then again around noon that very same day. I tried to rationalize why they would be texting and I couldn't. We had no plans of meeting up with them that day or anything. So I left work, went home, and confronted him. He admitted that she touched him inappropriately and I said, "Is that all?" And he said yes. I said okay, now I'm going to confront her. I left, went to her house, and asked her. She told me he touched her inappropriately. I went home and asked him and he said yes. It's all true. She ended up telling my brother the next day and he called me. We talked and I told him what I always suspected and that I think they're both at fault. He went home and spoke with her and she turned it around saying that my husband assaulted her and that she's the victim. My brother is now saying I have something against his wife and is telling me I'm victim blaming her and that I'm married to some monster. I'm so sick over this and haven't been getting much sleep at all. I really need support and any helpful advice. He's open to counseling. I myself have seen a therapist for many years, but I'm just heartbroken at this point and feel betrayed. On a side note, when I asked him why he did what he did, one of his excuses was that we weren't having sex enough. Even though we had just lost our child 6 months before things turned physical between the two of them. Story 3. Wife had her second affair with one of my friends during COVID. Feeling alone. A bit of backstory. We've always had what I thought was a happy marriage. We always clicked emotionally. And physically. I do have an atypical work schedule, where I travel a lot. But that never seemed to be an issue. We were married in 2008 after meeting in 2006. In 2013, seemingly out of the blue, she came to me and told me that she had had a drunken one-night stand with my best friend and best man of my wedding while we were engaged. She said that she had gotten drunk, and that he had taken advantage of that while I was on one of my work trips. As this was several years before, I forgave her, and tried to move on. But some things weren't adding up. I would get bits and pieces of more information. We went to counseling, and the therapist said that the details didn't matter, this is important later. She told me that nobody else knew about it. So we tried to move on. In June of that same year, I met up with her best friend and maid of honor while I was on a work trip. She accidentally let it slip that she had known about the affair. When I pressed my wife on it, the whole thing unraveled. As it turns out, this wasn't a drunken one-night stand. It was a 6-month-long affair with them meeting up and having sex numerous times while I was away on business. Bear in mind, this was with one of my lifelong friends. I was crushed, having lost a friend and potentially a wife all at once. I knew all along that something wasn't right, that the details didn't add up, but ignored it. This gave me a huge distrust of therapists in general. She went above and beyond to mend things. I thought about leaving, but as she was pregnant with our third child at the time, I decided to swallow my pride and try to work through things. Things did get better, but I found myself emotionally shut down at times to try and numb the pain of it all. This is also important. In 2105, my mother passed away, and I found myself shutting down even more. Fast forward to this year. In March, all my work travel abruptly stopped and I started working from home exclusively. This was a big departure from being on the road 200 days per year. We had to learn how to live with each other. And it was tough. At the beginning of April, she came to me and said she was unhappy. I realized that I really did need to make some big changes in my life if we were going to make it through this as a couple. I started making those changes. But to me, they went largely unnoticed. She started checking out of the marriage. I started noticing some atypical behavior from her around that time as well. Constantly on her phone and hiding it from me. Passwords changed. More concern with her appearance. I made note of all this, but wasn't overly concerned as we were in a lockdown situation due to COVID. In early May, things started to get bad between us, and I started looking for some answers. I started reading her journal, where she seemed to be talking in code. She mentioned a pain in the ass and how he loved her, and how she felt so invigorated by that. She had referred to one of my friends that lived nearly across the country as that in the past. But they had never met, although did chat occasionally on Messenger. The more I dug, the more I was convinced that she was having an emotional affair. I confronted her on multiple occasions. The first time, she denied it. The second, she said she was reconnecting with an old friend. The third time she said that someone from one of her parenting groups online had messaged her. And that's who she had been messaging with. All this time, I never told her that I had read her journals or was looking into who she was talking to. I told her it needed to stop. And she agreed. We also started therapy again around this time. The details started to not add up. At one point, I messaged my friend, and he assured me nothing was going on, but gave incredibly evasive answers. By this time I knew something was going on, but I had no real proof. Time and time again, I confronted my wife, asking her to just come clean so we could move past this. And she would bawl her eyes out because I didn't trust her. So I'd cave in, and push those feelings down again. But over time, they just keep creeping back up. In early August, she said she needed some time apart to work on our marriage. That our daily talks were just dragging her down too much. I needed to work from the house. So she offered to stay in our camper. So I booked her a nice campsite for 2 weeks. And off she went. I voiced my concerns. But she assured me over and over that this was just temporary. And that she'd be back and everything would be great. There were 2 days during this time that she was going to visit her aunt. So I had the kids. I texted her that night so the kids could say goodnight. But she didn't respond. Called. And no answer. The next day, she came over. And was extremely affectionate. We had sex. And she was kind of wild. I couldn't explain it. But didn't look a gift horse in the mouth as our sex life had been lacking for months. This continued for another week or two. Around this same time, she came to me and said she was pregnant. And that this was all a result of the pregnancy hormones. Then it happened. On September 11th, I got a message from my friend's wife with screenshots of explicit talk between my wife and him. And that explicit talk was about him fucking her. Again. You see, not only had they been having an emotional affair for 5 months, but in the midst of a global pandemic. And while she was supposed to be taking time to work on our marriage, she flew halfway across the country to meet him they had never even met before and have sex in a motel room. Then fly back the next day. Everything for the past 6 months has been a lie. She has manipulated me, lied to me, and put all the blame for our relationship troubles at my feet, while having an affair behind my back. The kicker? She was never pregnant. She was just horny from seeing him. She just used pregnancy as an excuse. She blamed me being emotionally closed off. But her affair with my best friend is what made me that way to begin with. We've tried working on things the past few weeks, but it's been tough. This weekend has especially been tough. Today is our 12-year anniversary. And I'm on the road for a month-long trip. My first since March. I offered to fly her to where I am for the weekend. But I was met with resistance. And she didn't really want to go through the trouble of finding someone to watch the kids and dog. Which is an extra special kick in the gut, considering she was willing to fly across the country to have sex with someone she had never met. I still think she's hiding things. Trying to get information from her about what exactly happened has been like pulling teeth. She told me she doesn't want to go into detail. But I told her that the details do matter this time. I don't know where to go from here. I've lost another friend. Someone who I confided in quite regularly. Then had all that used against me. She doesn't want me telling our friends, who have been my rock through all this, because she doesn't want to lose the friendship of their wives. I can't talk to our therapist, because she has taken over the appointments to work on some of her issues. And he's totally booked up other than our single time slot each week. I feel very alone right now. I guess that's why I'm here. I've lurked for several months, just trying to figure out if I was going crazy or not. And unfortunately, I wasn't. Where do I go from here? As I look back at my Facebook memories that pop up today, we've had so many good times together. Many smiles, laughs, adventures. We have 3 kids, a great house and property. Do I throw all that away? Can I ever trust her again? I just don't know. I don't know if I need advice, or just to vent. But in either case, thanks for listening. TLDR. Wife had her second affair during COVID lockdown. All the while gaslighting me and making me feel like I was crazy for even considering it. Feeling alone and don't know where to go from here. Thank you for watching.